So we left off right here with our property page. We need to actually go and build that page. So let's come up to our page. Let's add a new page. And we'll call this property. And we're not going to clone it from anything. We'll just create it. So we'll start from scratch. Come to our design. And of course, what's the first thing? Our nav bar. Come and grab your nav bar under your reusable elements. Just go ahead and drag it on the screen like so. And then just make sure it's displaying correctly. Now for our parent, of course, we're going to want this in a column format like so. Let's make sure this is not a fixed width and it's 0. So it takes up all of the space. And that looks great. So let's look at Airbnb's property. Now you see this house. If you finish this course, this could be your house. But this is basically what the property pages look like on Bubble. Once you click a specific property, it gives you kind of the title, some information. We're going to make a dumbed down version of this because this UI would take us some time to build. So let's just do a quicker example and let's see what we can't do. So we'll come to Bubble. Now the thing about the property page is when a user clicks it, it's going to display different information depending on what that property was. But we're only going to build the page one time and display the information appropriately to whatever they clicked on. So how do we do that? Well, we need to pass this entire page property information. So we right-click Edit, and we haven't done this before, but this is our entire page, so the property page. Come to Appearance, you can see the type of content we can add to it. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a property, and that's really all we need. That will allow us to access all the property information based on what they click on, and of course, we'll have to add some stuff to the URL parameters, but we'll get into that later. Don't worry about that. Now let's add our text box at the top of the page, and let's give this our layout. So uncheck the fixed width. Of course, make it 0, horizontal alignment in the center, and that's good for now. Let's add some text, and the text is actually going to be dynamic. Remember, almost everything on this page is going to be dynamic. So let's insert dynamic data, and we're looking for the property title. So we'll come and select our current page's property. That's how we're going to know which property is associated with the page and what we're supposed to display. So current page's property, we'll select the address, and then let's extract something from it. Let's just get the city again. So we'll get the city and we'll close that, and that's good enough for our purposes. Now let's actually move the text over to the left. So we'll come down and move it over. Let's give it a bold. We'll make it 18, see what that size looks like. That looks better. Now let's add our margin. So we'll come to Layout again. Scroll down, we'll give it a top of 20 and left and right of, let's say 40. Yeah, that looks good. And that should be it for our title. It should display the city it's in. Now, right under that, you see on Airbnb, they list their images. Let's add and display our images to the page based on the property. Of course, to do this, we're going to use our trusty old repeating group and drag that on the page like so. We'll give it a bit of height as well. And again, we don't want to display it like that necessarily. Let's go to our appearance. Let's give it a single row, and then we'll do multiple columns. Let's do 4. Actually, let's do 3. I think that's good enough for our purposes. So we'll do 3. Let's come back and give this title a bottom margin just to give it some separation. So we'll give it a 20 margin bottom, like so. And then let's go and display our images. So type of content is actually going to be our images. So let's come and select image. And then we're going to select our data source. So what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for the current page's property, and we're looking for those images. Now remember, it's going to be a list of images. So let's select the specific images in that list. Great. So we have that set up. Now we want to display the image itself because right now we're just getting access to the data. Remember that. We still need to display it. So what do? We'll come and grab our image boxes and drag it on the screen like so. We're not going to display any text, so we'll just make it centered like that. Let's come fix our parent alignment. We'll go to Layout. Right now it's fixed. Of course, we want, in this case, let's actually do Align to Parent. That way we can just center it right in the middle. And let's uncheck our fixed width, make that 0. And let's do our aspect ratio of a 1:1. Then let's give it some margin on all sides, just so we have some space in between the images. So we'll give 20 all around. And then let's display what we need to display. So for the image, let's actually title this so we know what it is later. So we'll say property, images. Then our dynamic data. Insert dynamic data. We'll get the current cell's image, And that's going to be it. Just get the current cells image. One thing we can add though, of course, is our processing. So we'll do current cells image and then process with ImageX. And we'll resize to fit the dimensions by cropping. That looks good. We'll close that. And we are good to go with displaying our images. So what's the next thing? Well, if we look at their page, they display entire home. So the property type, entire home. Then they say in specific city. So they extract that city and that state. So we can do that in Bubble, and I know you already know how. It's buzzing through your head. Then you can see they display the number of guests, bedrooms, beds, baths. I bet you kind of have an idea how we could do that. We just input our text boxes and then get the count of the guests for that current property. That'd be pretty easy. Let's just cruise over that for now. Let's go right into our property title. So we display the city up at the top, and then we'll say this is going to be our property title. So let's drag over a text box. In fact, let's actually copy. This is no code. Let's copy that text box we have up here. Come on, Bubble. All right, I'll just delete that. Let's copy and paste, and let's get rid of this data here because we're not displaying that. We're going to display the current page's property, and we'll select the title this time. So now we're displaying that title, and then below that title, let's actually display, I changed my mind already, let's actually display these numbers because I want to show you exactly how to get those counts from the database because you'll probably run into that scenario a few times when you're building applications. So let's drag a group on our page for this. So we'll drag one group. Let's make our entire page a little bit bigger so I have more to work with. We'll go to our min height. We'll give it like 1200 so we can scroll down a bit. Perfect. So now we have our group A. I want actually 2 of these. But you see they snapped as a column, and I actually want them as a row. So how do I get them in a row? Well, you need another group that has a row format. So we need a larger group across our page like so. And we need to move that title back up. So now we have our group. Let's fix the layout. So we'll center it. Instead of fixed, we want row. So we'll do that. Container alignment, we'll obviously center. Uncheck fixed width, make it 0. And let's leave the rest as is. And then inside of that, we actually want to drag our 2 new groups. So we have a group B, and we'll drag that over. And we'll actually give a space between. Remember, that's going to give us that separation. And we'll just copy and paste another group. Just like so, you can see the 2 groups. Now let's make them each take up, say, 50% of the width. We want them even. So we'll come to layout. Instead of fixed, we're probably going to want column. And we'll center the container alignment. We'll also center it vertically. And let's make it take up the entire width that it can. So over here, you see it push this element to the side. We need to do the same thing on group C, so column. And then we'll center everything. And let's uncheck the fixed width. We'll make it 0. And you can see it's still pushed to the side. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to make this 50%. So instead of this min width, let's see if we actually make it 0, it does automatically give us the 50% because they're both taking up as much space as possible. And that is great for our purposes here. Let's also fix the height. Let's give it 100%. So we'll give it 100% height. And then it takes up all of the space necessary. Let's do the same over here. 100%. Great, so that's exactly what we wanted. Those look perfect. Now inside the group, let's start displaying the information that we need. Grab a text box, we'll drag it in. And this is where we want to display that bed and bath count. So let's change the layout a little bit. Let's center align. And we're probably gonna align text to the left. I'll go ahead and do that already. And we'll leave it at 14, but we want this to snap to the top. So how do we do that? Well, right now it's in the center. Let's start snapping everything to the top of the container, and then it goes down as we add our items. Great, that looks good. Let's uncheck our fixed width, make it 0. Of course, give it that margin left, right, and bottom, and top. Let's actually leave the top 0. We'll give it bottom, though, and left and right of 20. Great. Now let's add our text. So let's see how we can do this. Some of the items in here are going to be dynamic data. Some we're going to manually type, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So we'll get the current page's property. And then we can simply select bathroom count. So we'll select bathroom count, and then we can type. So for example, we have bathroom count right here. Then let's type in, because that's going to give a number. Remember that. Current page properties bathroom count will be a number. So we'll say 8 baths, and then we'll add our bedroom. So let me come and give this a space in between. And then let's say we have a line that separates them. And then let's add our current pages, which is going to be our next dynamic data piece, our current pages property. We'll select bedroom count. And then again, we'll type bedroom. Great. So that should display, let's give it a space, otherwise it's going to be touching. Just like so. Come on, give me a space. I think it did. Anyways, we'll see it in the UI later if it's we need to fix it or not. But that is actually how you display, text and dynamic data at the same time. And you could obviously add the adult count here and the children count, as many counts as you want or whatever you want to display. We're going to leave it how it is for now, just displaying the bed and bath count. And let's move on to the property description. So we'll actually just copy and paste this text box again. We'll edit, get rid of all the data inside, and we just want the current properties description. So easy enough, current pages property, select description. Now let's move on to the amenities. So for this, we're actually going to display checkboxes that are not usable to a user, meaning we're going to pre-fill the checkbox based on what our database has. So let's select our checkboxes. We'll drag them on. See 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's redo that because I want margins around the sides. Let's come to layout. We'll give a margin left and right of 20, like so. And then a margin bottom of, say, 10. And then we can just copy and paste that. So now we have our checkboxes. Let's actually give them the titles. Now, we could just label them, and that's probably the quickest way to do it. However, we want to make it as dynamic as possible, meaning if you add options later, it can correctly display them. So let's change the text of each of them. So we had AC, capitalize that C, AC. Then what do we have? We had kitchen. We had a washing machine. And we had a dryer. Great. So now that we have those, let's see how we can predefine what they are. If they are checked, if they have an AC, kind of the conditional behind that. So right now, the preset status is unchecked. We want that. Notice here, we can select this input is disabled, meaning the user can't change it. That's actually what we want. So select that on all of them. Make sure we check that. Now the user cannot check them, but we want to pre-fill the checkboxes. So how do we do that? Well, enter our conditionals. So let's come to a conditional. Right now, this checkbox isn't valid, so I think that's pre-built in by Bubble. We come to our next conditional. Let's add something here. So we'll say if the current pages property, and then we'll select our AC, so wherever we had our AC, properties AC is yes, then we do something with the checkbox. And what are we doing? Well, we want to check it. So the preset status is going to go from unchecked to checked. Meaning if there's an AC, it's a yes or no. So if there's an AC, then we want to check that box and the user can't display it. That's letting the user know what amenities they have available. So we'll do it for all of them. We'll come to condition. And let's actually copy and paste that same. Well, we can't because it's different on each. So we'll just do it manually. Checkbox kitchen is checked. And we come down here. We'll say preset status as checked. Do the same for washing machine. Define a condition. We'll say current pages property. And then the washing machine is a yes. Then we'll set preset to checked. Did I just do that one wrong? Yes, I did. Checkbox kitchen. Instead of that, we're going to do our current page property, and then we'll do our kitchen, so wherever kitchen is. And then we'll do is yes, of course. Now for the dryer, same thing. Current page property, find our dryer. Why can't I find it? Oh, I'm blind as a bat. Where's our dryer? So probably because we don't have a dryer and we actually did Wi-Fi. That might help. So let's do Wi-Fi. Come to our conditional. It's now red. Bubble hates me now. So we'll check our Wi-Fi. Is yes. Come, preset status, and we'll select our checked. Great. So we have our checkboxes that will display checked if there's something available. And if not, they'll remain empty. The user cannot change these. That is an important functionality to learn. So glad we can cover that. So what I want to display over here is the price per night, which they kind of have up top here. How much is it going to cost? Then the check in, check out, number of guests, and kind of a reserve option, and then give them their totals. So let's go do that. Let's go to Bubble. Let's select our text. And for this, let's even copy this right here, paste it in our group. You can see it automatically formats inside. All we have to do is change it up a little bit. So let's align this to the top. And then let's change the margins a little bit because we don't want 40. Let's do 20. So come to Layout, change these 40s to 20. And then, of course, we'll change what the text is actually saying. So instead of title, let's go find that PPN. Then we'll format it as a currency. Decimal place, we'll leave. Thousand separator, we'll do a comma. Close. Just like that, that is how we're going to format the price per night. Super easy, but it's important to note, this will just display a number. Come back, edit. We have to actually type in price per night. So after that number, we'll do per night. Great. So now it's going to display the per night after the number. Let's give it that space so it's not right next to each other. Great. That's going to look beautiful on our application. And we're going to need a group for this because we want to format them as a row. So come and select a group, drag it on your screen. Now inside of this group, we're going to need another group because we want to display them in a row, but we need the label and the date picker to be in column. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's grab two more groups. Grab a group here, make sure it fits in, and we'll just copy and paste that 2 times so they're right next to each other. Let's make them a little bigger though so they take up all of the space. So if we'll come to Layout, and we will make it a column. So we have a column, a row, and a column. I hope that makes sense. So we'll uncheck the fixed width. We'll give it a 0. Then let's do the same over here. Let's give it a column, uncheck that fixed width, give it a 0. It should be taking up the same amount of space. Now let's do the height. So Layout will come and give it 100% minimum height. And then we'll give this the same. Great, so that's exactly how we want it laid out. Now we can start putting the text box and the date picker inside of here. So let's grab our text boxes like so. Copy, paste, right where we want them, and then we can just edit those and say check in, and we can say check out. Now I do want to left align these, so let's text left align, just like so, and then right below those, I want that date picker, a way for a user to select the dates they want to book. So let's come and select our date picker. So we have a date and time picker. Let's drag and drop that over, and let's do that over here as well. Great, so we have a way for them to check in and out, and that's all the information we need to capture a date and time. Great, so the next thing we're gonna do is allow them to select a number of adult and children. So let's actually copy this entire thing because it's gonna be a similar layout. So if you have trouble selecting the parent, just come and right click, and then you can select the first parent, and you'll be able to copy and paste. So copy, paste. So we have the same thing right down here, but we're gonna change a few things. So we'll say adults and children. Now, we don't want the date and time picker though, so we can get rid of those. What we do want though is a drop down of options. So let's see what we can do with a drop down. Let's drag and drop our drop down in there, copy and paste that. Now we need to add our options to these drop downs. So we'll come and select edit. In the placeholder, we can just leave that as blank. For our choices, we can either do static or dynamic. I think we can get away with static here, so let's just do that really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they have 9 options. So that will be their drop-down choices. Let's do the same over here. We'll just do static, and we'll leave the placeholder as is. 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Great, so now they can select a 1 through 9 as their option for adult and children. We need to add a button here, but we've run out of room. So let's select the parent, select first parent, and let's edit. What do we need to edit? Well, probably the height. So let's give it a little bit more height. Come to layout, and we'll give it a 500. Again, we're gonna snap this to fit the content at the end, so we'll do that either way. Let's select our button. So come up, select a button. We'll drag it over like this. Come to our layout, and we'll fix that up a bit. We'll say 0, and we'll give it our left and right. let's say 40. Whoops, not 4. 40. And then we will say submit or book. Let's say book property. Great. Now there's one more thing I want to add, and that is going to be an option for them to add the property to their favorites list. So let's do that. Let's select a group. Let's drag the group right below our amenities, like so. And then we're going to have this in a row format. Let's first edit the layout. Select our group, edit layout, come here and center it. And it won't matter because we're actually just going to give it a row. And then we will uncheck the fixed width, give it a 0. Of course, give it that left and right, 20, 20. And then inside here, we're going to actually add an icon. So let's come and select our icon, and we'll drag that in our group right here. We'll probably make it a 1-to-1. Let's fix the layout a little bit. Let's actually do our space between, and then we can drag our text over like so. Now there's that space between. We have the icon and this. I actually don't want space between. I want them close together. So let's do a center alignment like so. And then we can just add our heart icon for our book. So add it to their favorites. You can just type in heart. And then we're going to want to have an empty. And then we're going to do something if it changes. So typically these are going to be red. So we'll make it red. And then we'll change our text really quick here. We'll say add to bookmarks. Great. Now the user knows what this does, and we can even left align that text to put it a little bit closer, which I think we're going to do. Let's left align. Yep, that looks a lot better, and I actually want to push these over to the left. I think that would look even better. So let's do that. Let's come to our layout, and let's push everything to the left, like so. Let's drop it down and center it, though. So come back to layout, center, center. There we go. So they're aligned to the left, they're centered. That looks quite good. I think that's actually good for our purposes. You could push this over a little bit more just to align it and make it look like it's in a row with all the other details. But I think that looks fine for now. Let's give this a bold to make it stand out a little bit more. Great. So now we need to add some functionality to this button and update our database if they click it. We also need to do something with this book property. We need to update our database. So how are we going to do that? Well, before we do that, I want to cover a few more things and add one more thing to our page here. First, let's edit our parent right here. So let's select the first parent. We'll come and edit it so we can fit the height to content. So let's do that. Let's check this as 0 and fit height to content. Now you can see this button's at the bottom, so we do need to give that a bottom margin. Come to layout, and then we'll give it a 20 pixel bottom, like so it looks way better. So this is looking good. Let's add a map because we need a map. I think they display it on their property page. They don't. Yes, they do. So where you'll be, and then they display a map of where the location is. Let's see if we can't do that same functionality and how that works. Come back to Bubble. So let's select our map, and we'll drag it on the screen. Don't worry, we'll fit. Whoa, let's go down here, Bubble. What are we doing? So we'll drag it down there. Get rid of this. And let's already fix the width and height. I need a bit more room on our page. Let's give it 2,000 just so I have room to work with. And let's fix the width and height. So we want it to take up probably the full screen. Come to layout. Let's uncheck our fixed width. We'll go to 0 for our min. And let's keep an aspect ratio. I'd say a 1:2, maybe a 1, not a 1:1. That looks horrible. Let's do 1:2. That looks even worse. Let's go 2:1. 2:1. Okay, that looks a lot better. That kind of looks like a map that we would be displaying. Now, we want this pin to reflect the property address, though. How do we do that? Well, this is going to be super easy. We'll come to Edit. We'll go to Appearance. You can see it has a number of markers. We want single. And then we have a marker address. Well, where do we get that address from? Well, we can select the current page's property and simply get their address and display the marker on whatever this property is, wherever it's located. It's going to put the marker there. You can also do a bunch of more features with this. We can do a hybrid, we do a satellite. I like hybrid. Actually, I don't. I like road. And then you can do a zoom and scroll or initial zoom. So if we wanted to even zoom in even more of where the property is, you can do that. So this is all super cool functionality that I encourage you to play around with and get familiar with. but I just wanted to show you how the map feature works. And really, for our purposes, this is all we really need on the map page. Anything else would just be adding extra UI and displaying more information. We've already covered how to do all of that stuff. So it'd just be taking up more of your time, and I don't want to do that. I just want to teach you what you need to know and not repeat ourselves by covering the same thing over and over. So let's move on. Let's add the functionality behind our add to bookmarks and our book property. So we're actually going to do that in the next lesson. Let's build upon our page right here and add those back-end workflows. So we have a fully functioning property page where they can book, and we're almost done with module 3. There's a few more pages we need to do, but you are almost to the end. So give yourself a pat on the back for getting this far. I'll see you in the next lesson.